Just like my fanfiction.
Oh wait, that's a point. We could have worried about that. I just realized. Hello, fellow fanfiction writers. Hater is definitely not a fanfiction writer right now.
Who here's a hater? There we go, one hater.
Brandon. Well, I'm half hater. That's okay. I'm half hater, half hollow, half. I was actually hoping for hater. Yeah, I was actually hoping this would be a hater-heavy panel. Don't worry. Because
it depends on the type of fan.
Oh man, I'm half Saiyan, half Gundam, half Vegeta, half Earthworm, half.
Wasn't Dragon Ball Evolution based off fanfiction?
Anyone can write fanfiction.
So what's up with this fanfiction thing that people do? What is the dilemma? What makes people want to take someone else's story and write their own thing? Yeah, go ahead. That's why I let them pony up.
They basically have this picture in their head that they know the writer will never write, so they write it themselves.
It's your story.
Yeah.
That's about. You think that's it? That they just media?
If it's something,
they just want to spit in the face of the writer. You think? They just.
No.
I think it's. Basically, there's this thing called fandoms. And people lose their shit over this stuff.
Yes, we do.
Hey, have you went to the Dragon Ball panel? We met someone like that earlier.
People
but they wouldn't know because they aren't true fans.
People get very excited about these shows. They get so excited about these that they want to contribute to it somehow. They want to be part of the universe.
Yeah, like Stephen Moffat tries to contribute to Doctor Who.
By killing all every
Now you
Doctor's name.
Go to your room. Next door.
Killing people off, telling the doctor's name, which apparently the doctor's name is Steven or some bullshit.
Why? It was actually just Theo.
His name's not Steven. She's the one spoiling it right now.
Well, dude, my original character, Dr. Goku, man. Come on, man.
So people get really excited about these shows and these stories that they really enjoy, and it gets these ideas in their head rolling of what they would like to do. And unfortunately, they get so excited that they develop this sense of reckless abandon and self-disregard,
and just end up crapping on everything that they supposedly love.
and they throw themselves into these stories without thinking, and the result that we get is fanfiction.
Like Jeff Kurosaki, the greatest character ever.
It seems like it would be mostly harmless. You would think that people writing their own stories would be mostly harmless. So my question is, you torn up.
I don't know what your question
is.
I'm waiting for that question.
I am in suspense.
Why do people hate it so much?
Because of Dave Chappelle.
Dialogue. Because you guys have the wrong pairings.
Right? It's just not right.
You have the wrong pairings all the time.
I have wrong pairings?
Well,
the show gets it wrong, doesn't it?
Oh, sure, yeah, I know, yeah.
The show has a tendency to make some sort of sense.
Dude, I refuse to watch a series where Nami doesn't fall in love with me.
Wasn't 50 Shades of Grey fanfiction of Twilight?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Budgie, it's fanfiction.
And Twilight was fanfiction of every other vampire series ever made.
Right.
And also, Diaries of a Lonely Old Woman.
So basically, here's. So let's look at what makes fanfiction so bad.
You write it really good.
Pretty much, yeah. Enjoy your break from the pictures. There's been a lot to look at. So you have these incredibly amateur writers, and there's lots of amateur writers, but most of the time with fanfiction, you're dealing with people who have very limited amount of writing skills. Maybe high school English at best.
And then John was a zombie.
They tend to have very little experience in writing whatsoever, except other fan fictions that they've done. Most of what they've been exposed to, from a literary standpoint, is going to be other fan fiction, or sometimes novels that they've read. They may be well read. Also, there seems to be this assumption of effort. Like fan fictions come across like there wasn't much effort put into them. Like they care a lot about their stories, but it looks like someone didn't even try.
They didn't even research or try to make anything make sense.
And the biggest thing that people run into with fan fiction is not being able to follow the author's thought process. Like when you see the weird pairings or they do stuff that didn't make sense in the original story.
Just break canon.
They don't explain the changes that they do.
Look at you, Mass Effect.
Whenever they do, it makes no sense.
That was the original story messing up. That's the Okay. So another thing that fanfiction authors do is what they end up doing is they go after their own satisfaction rather than their reader's satisfaction, even though they're trying to appeal to the audience. And what they don't always realize is that they're only writing a story for themselves, which would be fine. If you just want to,
no one really wants to read your literary masturbation.
If you just want to read a story where you get to marry the character from your favorite story, that's fine. You don't have to show it to other people.
Right for the
This complaint is larger than fan fiction.
This extends into regular
the biggest complaint people have of any.
I love Mary Sue. She's my favorite. Yeah, her. That's what she looks like. She's my character. That's just a wig.
Anyone who plays Magic knows that this is definitely a Mary Sue card.
Where's the roll 34?
It's incredible. Mary Sue's tend to be incredibly overpowered. They're not very dynamic. They're not very interesting. They're boring. And usually the problem is they're too perfect and it makes them too boring.
Good thing Jim could have started not like that at all.
Doesn't make sense. So what fanfiction writers do is what I was getting at before is they tend to insert themselves into the story. And this is related to Mary Sue. That Mary Sue main character that they create works as an avatar for the author. It's them living out their own personal fantasy within the universe.
You guys stole my character core.
Didn't that happen in Bleach?
Happens in Bleach all the time.
Well, technically,
pretty much the only difference between exhibitionists and fanfiction writers is fanfiction writers expose themselves on paper.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not a felony for that yet.
No, there's no laws against bad fanfiction yet.
What can be done about it?
What can better fanfiction? So who in here is actually aspires or does write their own fanfiction stories?
back in college.
Chris, raise your hand.
When I was in middle school,
Back in college.
when I was young, zero.
I grew out of that phase.
I mean, who writes fanfiction anymore?
GeoCities and Net Zero, okay?
So basically, okay, children, it's time to go back to school. Let's learn a little bit.
Oh, great! That's not right. That's
I always hated writing. I never did it.
You didn't like writing? Well, then you definitely shouldn't write if you don't enjoy it. I do not recommend ever doing anything you hate that you don't have to. Or someone's paying you a lot of money. Don't do what you hate.
There's car accidents.
So the most important thing in fan fiction is the character focus. Because that's going to be the biggest complaint that people have about your stories is that your characters aren't both they're good and they don't follow what the original character.
You can have the most amazing plot in the world, but if everyone wants to strangle your main characters, they're not going to read it.
Yeah, and that's my apology for the joke in the last class.
Cinnamon is the winner, Mon.
Okay.
I hate you.
Fan fiction, in theory, should be one of the easiest things imaginable from a writing perspective, because one of the hardest things to do as a writer is create a universe that pulls people in, that gets people excited to have characters that are relatable and likable, and you're taking a source material that's already done that for you. There's already tons of people who love the story, they already like the characters, they already love what's going on, so it should be like popping Easy Mac into the microwave, right?
I think that.
Yeah.
The good news,
I mean, how long do I put in there? A minute? You like to be.
the good news is that your readers will already love the characters. The bad news is that the readers already love the characters. And if you do anything wrong as a writer, you're going to get so much hate about what you do.
Well, that's their problem.
Regardless of what your skill is.
Can't have Krillin live.
Well, that's just great.
So we talked about canon characters. Let's talk about original characters. OCs. Oh, we're back to that all-star avatar. By the way, I apologize to whoever.
That's the Black Stallion I made it.
I googled that. I don't know whose artwork that is. That's actually really nice. But yeah. I just use it as an example for OC. My complaint isn't with the artwork. My complaint is usually with what people do with their OCs. Like, her name is Raven Moonblood. She's
Careful, man.
in the Chosen One, but she doesn't know it.
Careful, man. You are closely offending every Sonic fan in here.
Why is it just the main
You never made your own OC character?
I made more than the one.
I made more than you.
Yeah,
I made plus one.
Well, I made Rainbow Sonic.
So how
That's better than like 5 Sonics.
So how do we fix our bad? So how do we fix our bad OC characters?
Because I got Sonic
Well, the problem exactly make them believable. The problem with OC characters, like I said, is just like Mary Sue's. and they often are Mary Sue's, is that they're too perfect, they're too good. You're starting with the aspects about them that you admire and that you like. Try approaching character creation from the opposite side. Start with the negative of the character. What are their flaws and what are their failings? And then you come up with good things. Come up with good things to balance that. You don't have to do it that way, but if you're having problems or people giving you a lot of Mary Sue complaints or you feel like your characters don't have enough depth, try approaching it from the other side. Right? What's wrong with your character first, or what's not desirable about your character.
My character's only weakness is kryptonite, and that's not found on this planet. And the yellow sun makes me really super awesome. So obviously my character, he has a weakness. I mean,
There's a reason we read Batman and Superman. Because there's a potential for failing.
There's a reason the Batman
That's why you have to back. There's a reason the character has a chance of failing. You actually are like, you're actually worried. You're actually like, oh, shit could go wrong. Like we were talking in the last panel, with the 8th MS team, those Gundams die. There's no good chance that you're coming back with only half your friends, and that causes tension. That's like, if my character, I care about him to live, and you keep reading. There's Superman, you're just like, he'll wake up tomorrow.
That's true. Most Gundams are really overpowered. They're kind of like Mary Sue's without personalities.
I like
So that's what?
Or if Chance or Superman.
So like I said, to help give your original character's depth, because your character you're starting from scratch. You don't have a template that exists to work with. Is give them some kind of critical failing or something about themselves that they desperately need to change, and make sure it's substantial. Like not like my hair has too many split ends, and I have to make my hair better, and then I'll be perfect. So something. Sucking dick. They have to get better at sucking dick because they're not good. If you're writing hentai, I suppose that works. But yeah, and don't skip on it. Don't be afraid to make the dilemma a very serious one. As a lot of people, they make the challenges for their characters too small and too easy to overcome. Or if they are great challenges, they give them the ability to overcome them too easily. And yes, and a dilemma is not just. A dilemma and dichotomy are not the same thing. I feel this, but I feel that. I feel this, but I feel the opposite. But I want this, but I also want the opposite. That's not a dilemma.
Don't worry, my problem gets solved with swallows.
They make their backstories dilemmas they over exaggerate it. They make it into that like my parents were usually as a child, then my village is burned down, and then I run, and then I get put into slavery.
That's a very.
And I'm only 10 years old.
That's a very good point that I forgot to make a slide for. I actually remember thinking about that, and I didn't make a slide for it. That she brought up. Backstories are great, but a lot of fanfiction writers actually put too much thought and effort into the backstory. All this crazy shit happened to them when they were younger, and sold into slavery. That's the story you should be telling. Parents are always dead. If the backstory is more interesting than your main story, write the backstory. Tell that one. I tell fanfiction writers that all the time. They'll be like, "Oh, to understand my story, you have to know like all this other shit that happened before and all that." I'm like, "Why aren't you writing that story?"
That sounds interesting.
That sounds better than this. Just write your backstory.
And that's the flaw, because they'll go like 12 chapters into this boring story, and people are like, "What about this character?" Like, well, I mean, I want to know more about this. And then suddenly,
if you know all this interesting shit that already happened,
yeah, but they finally added the backstory out of the 12 chapters. I'm like, why?
So basically, Tita Kubo then.
Yes.
Oh, man.
So we will write Blue Chapter all.
Yeah.
Jeff Kursaki, it's your Blue to go.
So let's talk about plots.
So character is the #1 thing you have to worry about. This is probably your #2 thing.
Yes, because like I said in the previous slide, characters your story will live and die by your characters. The plot can suffer a little bit if you have really relatable characters. That's the biggest thing to invest people. The next biggest thing is the actual story that you tell. Now, one thing that you have to hand to pretty much any fanfiction writer is they do put a lot of thought into the story that they want to tell. At least mentally. Never ask a fanfiction writer about their story unless you have more than 3 hours to kill, because they will be able to go on and on and on.
That says if you have less.
I'm guilty about this, and I'm guilty for this. Ask any of these 5 people in the room.
Then the sub came up, and then I'm like, I have to go to work. Can we please end this?
Wow, man.
I got things.
Because fanfiction writers have
I
have to go do maintenance on my Gundam.
Like, they give you so much useless information, then it's like one paragraph where everything happens, and you're just like, what's
I see you at work tomorrow.
So, yeah.
My biggest advice when you're writing your story is keep it simple. The character should have simple motivations. If you look at all the most successful movies, if you look at the hero's journey model, there's the archetype. There's simple motivations. They have simple goals and simple desires. Now, complicated things can happen. But these things need to stay simple. The audience needs to know what the characters are going after, why they want it, why it's important, and what's at stake,
and why should they care.
And why they should care about it. Those things should be very, very clear. Just because your story is convoluted,
Why must we take the ring to Mordor?
Dumbledore coward.
You have to destroy the Ring of Power, or else everything's fucked. That's simple. And then a lot of shit happens, but you never lose that. You never lose that part. Like if we don't blow this ring up, like everything goes to shit. and then crazy stuff happens. But like
That's what I'm,
focus there.
There's an airplane.
So in fan fiction, you're mostly dealing with sequels, prequels, and retcon. You're writing what happened before. You're writing what happened after the main story, or you're cleverly dodging your way in between to like, oh, this happened at the same time, and this is how my story is alternate universe thing. But basically, in this model of fan fiction, you're trying to match what was done in the canon. You're trying to get yours to be the same thing. But then there's also elements of the story that the canon didn't go over, the main story didn't talk about, or they didn't expressly say did or didn't happen,
or stuff that you want to happen in
your
your story.
That's now we're getting to the dangerous area of headcanon, things that could be part of the main story, but it's not clear or defined. And that's where you get lots of, forget fanfiction, that's where you get lots of debates in fandom in general. People talking like, Darth Vader's the most interesting character ever. No, he's just boring. But all of this, and the only evidence you have to talk about it is stuff that you have that's applied.
Rainbow Dash has to be lesbian.
Yeah,
exactly.
Where'd that come from? There's actually nothing canon-wise.
She flies fast and has short hair.
No straight girl has short hair and is athletic.
Oh my lord.
In my fanfiction, Yukimura Sanada rides in the back of Rainbow Dash and fights Masamune Date, who rides in the back of 55.
No, I'm not gonna sit here and say don't write Asian crossovers. But don't write Asian. It can be done, but
it's a very dangerous minefield.
You were already in dangerous territory messing with people's fandoms.
Yes, I'm already loading my gun.
Hey guys, here's an idea. Let's talk about the best fan fiction ever, Ranma Club.
You are exponentially increasing the amount of lines in the minefield when you start crossing things over or changing the universe.
I think this is one reason why I hate fan fiction, because people are so afraid of this right here. You think that because people have crossed over something that it's intentionally horrible. But the thing is you're not broadening your mind scope. You're just staring at your one fandom and going, oh, well, they touched my thing. Well, who gives a shit? It's cool in both ways.
It's serious business.
It's pretty obvious that some of them are really good.
If someone sucks as a writer and they try to do this, it's going to suck
never
more.
found a good one.
And here's the thing, even if you have a good amount of skill, even if you have a decent amount of skill as a writer, you can fall into some serious traps. When you go into crossovers, you'll run into problems that you didn't realize you had if you stuck with one store's universe.
Because the two universes have their own rules.
Yeah, they have different rules. Which one's the more dominant? Like, in this universe, this would happen, but in this, like, how does magic and technology translate in different universes?
You're doing a Robot Chicken, what they did with Adventure Time in the Marvel thing. I mean, that was funny, and it's a crossover. You know, is that inherently making it bad? No, they're using it appropriately.
Parody gets a pass. Parody almost always gets a pass. That like people will be like, I hate crossovers. Oh, that was a funny thing about Doctor Who and the space vaginas. Like that was hilarious.
Because you're trying to be ridiculous.
Parody. People tend to get Doctor Who and the Cylons. Yeah. The Cyberlons.
Companion Mega Garurumon.
So then you have this thing like Exposition.
Oh my god.
I'm not kidding. First page of Google image search. This is on Exposition.
I bet it's great.
Because apparently you're going to lot of exposition to explain what the hell this is.
I thought that was a tampon. I'm like, yo, what's that?
That's the record needle. He's holding the record needle in his mouth to play.
I thought it was a banana pot.
See, 40 years ago, 400 years ago, there was these things called vinyl records. Needle.
Oh no, we know.
Kind of like how a laser reads a CD. Oh, no one knows what that is either.
No.
Double old.
Sorry, but like
Yeah, what about?
Oh yeah.
What's a cartridge?
Wait, that brick?
So exposition.
I love this too.
Exposition, you know, obviously you have to explain the details of what's going on in your story. And for fanfiction writers, this is where the boring stuff happens. Because they don't know how to exposit. And when it comes to exposition, the greatest skill you can have is multitasking. You want to be able to do multiple things at a time while expositing, because
less boring stuff and more cool stuff happening.
Otherwise, I've seen fan fiction that's pretty much character description, scene description, scene description, something happens. And there's too much exposition. You can multitasking. You can have two people having a conversation over something not very significant, and while they're talking, their characters are being defined, their motivations are being defined, the universe around them is being defined, the tone of the series is being set. All of this thing is being done over a conversation over tea. And a great example of hang on. Oh man, a different movie, Pulp Fiction. The opening to Pulp Fiction, where they're sitting in the restaurant. The two crooks are in the restaurant, and they're just talking. They're just talking about what is he complaining about? What was the guy complaining about?
Samuel Jackson. Like how he's like quitting because he had to hear that. And then at the end of the conversation, she gets up with. They're like, "Okay, you ready to rob this place now? Yeah, let's do it." And she gets up and yells at everyone to get down. And that's the opening. No, you would think that Quentin Tarantino is so good with exposition. He's one of my favorites for exposition as far as directors go. Because that whole scene was nothing but exposition. It was just a conversation that didn't really matter as far as advancing the story goes. It set up the universe. It set up the tone. It showed who they were. We're dealing with a black guy and a white.
We're dealing with criminals. We're dealing with people of low ethics. But they're still well-rounded, developed characters. It set the mood of how the movie's going to feel. Everything was done in that 2-minute scene. That otherwise it might have taken a half hour of the movie to understand all of this stuff that was going on. And the failing that fanfiction writers do, like if a fanfiction writer was trying to write that Pulp Fiction scene, they'd be like, what was the guy's name? It's been so long since I've seen Pulp Fiction.
The guy on first base?
The guy.
John Travolta's character, or
in the restaurant at the
no, the people that are robbing it, and John Travolta Jackson are sitting there.
What are the
like husband? They what? Boyfriend, girlfriend?
Yeah,
I don't remember the name.
Okay, well,
crazy bitch, crazy guy.
His name is now John. His name is now John. So like a fan fiction writer would have written like John is a hard. John Valjean is a hardened criminal. He'll kill you and not feel any remorse. He sat there at the coffee table feeling confident about himself, and he started complaining about that. And it would just Samuel L. Jackson. It would just be them talking about it, and instead of using the dialogue to drive that scene and to set the mood, they would just talk about it for a long time. And that was a lot of exposition to explain exposition. That was
Yoda.
We have stuff to work on as well.
I need to work on this too. Try not to get bogged down. Do not write a screenplay.
That's what you're trying to go for.
You're writing a screenplay. But if you're writing a novel, be very careful of scene descriptions, which is the screenplay format, like interior hotel room. These are the characters in the scene. This is what it looks like. Here's what they're doing. Okay, talk. And then you just have a bunch of dialogue, and then this happens, and then more dialogue. That's what I call the novel starts looking like a screenplay because of how it's set up. It doesn't flow well. And going in the other direction, don't write a manual, which I just spent a lot of talking, which is what I was just talking about, where you just are pretty much a technical manual that explains your universe. Like, my universe is very complicated, so the first 4 chapters are the technical instructional manual that you need to read to understand my universe. It's what?
You could do what some people do, where they write the whole manual thing, and then they start writing the fan fiction. So it's like, if you want to know what's going on, you should try it.
See, that doesn't work. If I have to read a book to understand your book, you have a bad book. That's the whole point. If I need the reference guide,
If you're making like footnote labyrinths just so I can understand what's going on, something's already gone wrong.
Exactly. Just like I didn't like having to buy the $25 game guide just to be able to beat a game. Like I thought that was a bad game. There's something to it. And of course, there have been many authors in history. Like people will quote this all the time. Authors who have been exception to these rules about exposition. Get over it. You are not Hemingway, Tolkien, Shakespeare, or anyone else who's C.S. Lewis, or anyone else who's really, really good at writing about absolutely nothing important and keeping your attention. You are not that good. Get over it. You have to develop things. You have to multitask.
Especially nowadays, because back then, the people that they had much longer attention span. People was much more willing to sit and wait. When you used to have to wait to take 3 hours just to bake a loaf of bread. People have a lot more patience for these type of things. Nowadays, where people are just like, oh, this picture doesn't load up in 3 seconds, I'm already on, moving on to the next one. You have to spit out what you want to say, or else people are just going to move on. Rules have kind of changed. Nobody got time today.